Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 6 of Featherweight Flyers, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of ultra lightweight track day sports cars. Cars which are not necessarily the most powerful or the quickest in a straight line, but in real life they're geared generally more towards fun, the pure fun of driving, of taking on a twisty piece of road, not necessarily even a track, but even a public road, and having fun with that. It's all about high average speed and handling rather than pure straight line performance. And this particular vehicle is a perfect example of that, because it takes elements of probably the nearest equivalent to Featherweight Flyers as a class of vehicles, and that is motorbikes. Specifically sport bikes. They're very similar. Motorbikes, specifically sports bikes and superbikes, aren't necessarily as quick as a supercar in a straight line, especially for top-end performance. But that's not what it's about for most sport bikes. They're about fun, they're about cornering, they're about acceleration, they're about going down a twisty road and having fun just from riding them. So they're very similar in that regard to the vehicles in this series. So what could be a more appropriate merging of technology to create a vehicle in this category than taking motorbike technology and putting it into a car? Well, that's what this vehicle does. It's the Suzuki GSXR4. It's named in part after Suzuki's probably most famous sport bike range, the GSXR range, commonly known as the Gixxers, up to and including the pretty well known and former fastest motorbike in the world, the Hayabusa. Now this car uses a Suzuki GSXR engine. I believe it is actually a Hayabusa engine if I remember correctly. It's a 1.3 litre which you can tune up to, in naturally aspirated form, 263 horsepower. Now this is the first issue that I have with this car. It's a brilliant car, people know that. For multiple PP levels, it's one of the quickest cars you can get. But the game does this car a severe disservice, because in real life, and many people, especially petrol heads rather than motorcycle enthusiasts, don't realise this, but the Suzuki Hayabusa engine, among some other bikes, actually has the potential to be as powerful as a supercar. With a turbo conversion, you can get a Suzuki Hayabusa engine, that 1300 or 1.3 litre engine, to put out 700 horsepower. If we were actually allowed to do that on the game, it would be one of the quickest cars on Gran Turismo, especially for acceleration, but unfortunately we're not given that chance. It remains a naturally aspirated vehicle. Now 263 horsepower is still a lot, especially for a motorbike engine. You very, very rarely see that kind of power put into a motorbike, especially naturally aspirated. The only motorbike that really comes close to that is my personal favourite motorbike, which is the MTT Y2K, and that bike only produces that kind of power because it uses a gas turbine engine from a helicopter. So that kind of power is not generally used in a motorbike. You take that engine and put it in a car though, and you instantly have the potential advantage of another two wheels to give you so much more grip and stability to actually put all that power down. This car, the GSX-R4, allows that to be done. Now, even though it's obviously a lot heavier than a bike, it still only weighs 582 kilos. So it is one of the lighter cars in this series, and it puts out 452 horsepower per tonne, thanks to that low weight. So pretty impressive specs, not necessarily the strongest in the class, but impressive nonetheless. And thankfully, and this is another really good point about this car, the PP is not that high. It sits at 571, fully tuned. Now to put that into perspective, the light car company Rocket sits at 658 PP, which is far too high. It's just not competitive enough at that level on most circuits. It's a fast car, but it's not that fast. This car at 571 pp is far more usable. You can use this car effectively at anything between 425 all the way up to 570 pp, and on the right track, especially twisty circuits that require average speeds, it can absolutely put sports cars even, and in some cases supercars, to shame. It's an incredibly quick vehicle. Now, it puts out 141 foot-pounds of torque, which is not very much at all, but again, this is a motorbike engine that we're talking about, and motorbikes just don't need torque. They have such a small amount of weight to shift. And to top it all off, the price of this car, considering how good it actually is not overly high. It does cost more than some vehicles like the light car company Rocket and the Motorsport Elise at 125,000 credits. But still, 125,000 credits for a car as good as this, and it really is a good car. You can use it for so many seasonal events, seasonal races, career races, and online races, and not just use it, but win with it. It's just one of those cars which, regardless of your opinion of it, you need to buy it. It's just too much of an effective tool not to own. Me, for instance, I'm not a fan of the car. I don't really like the GSX-R4, I don't particularly like the way it looks, and I don't particularly like the vehicle overall. I love the concept of it, I just don't particularly like the car. That said, I still use it more than many of the other cars in this series just because of how relevant its PP is and how fast it is at that PP, which for these kind of cars is pretty much the most important thing. If you have a PP that's wildly too high, it instantly makes the car kind of useless, as in the case of the Red Bull Junior, which is a great car, but the PP is ridiculously high, so much so that it's useless for anything but one-make racing. This car, though, has an actual usable level of PP. 571 is brilliant. It's perfect, even for this car. It's so good at that level. Now, in a straight line, it's not the quickest of cars, not even within this category. The top speed is around 190, 200-ish, a little bit more with NOS or draft, but it's not really designed for that. It's more about that handling, track potential, acceleration, etc. And for those things, it's very good. The handling can have a tendency to be a little bit oversteering, which isn't surprising, but with careful tuning, it will serve you well. But that's it overall for this particular episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.